So how's it going, guys? I'm back with another retrospective, and this time it's going to be on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So I'm trying out a little bit of a theme here, doing a little bit of a mini marathon on Star Wars games. I was kind of in the mood for it, so don't hold me to it. You know, the next game review will be a Star Wars game. It might be something else. You know, I'm still thinking that I have to do a Sonic 3 and Knuckles retrospective because I've kind of got a little bit of a matzo ball hanging out there. You know, I need to continue that. Also, I've got another Shantae game that I want to look at, but we're going to be taking a look at Star Wars. So we've got the game here for the PC. It was also released for the PlayStation, which I've never played. But I picked up this PC version way back in '99. You know, a couple of months had passed since I saw the movie, and I saw that there was a game, and this is a really interesting game. You know, it's based on the movie. You get to play as Qui-Gon, you get to play as ObiWan, as well as other characters, and you get to relive famous scenes from the movie. You know, even certain scenes are recreated with full motion video. So there's a lot of really interesting aspects of this game, and I'm going to explain in the retrospective. A lot of different elements in this game got translated into other games. A lot of great ideas went into this, but how is this game? Is it a good game? Is it a bad game? If you look online, there's some mixed opinions on it. Some people are very fond of it, others not so much. Well, you're gonna learn what I think about the game. And guys, I hope you all enjoy the retrospective, and may the Force be with you once again. Probably should come up with a new line or something like that, but I don't know. You know, that's the most Star Warsy thing I could think to say in these intros. So here we go, guys. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. How can you start off by talking about this game without mentioning the film which it's based on? One of the most controversial films of all time that I absolutely love, but many people hate. I think people have, you know, found newfound love for the movie, especially after the Clone Wars. See, I didn't need any Clone Wars you know, coaxing. I liked Episode 1 from the very moment I saw it in the theater back in '99. I absolutely fell in love with the movie and its imagination and the characters that it introduced and reintroduced. And there's a lot of people who think that this movie is the number of the beast. They think that it's absolutely horrific. They think that it's absolutely terrible. Many people over-exaggerating just, you know, how much Jar Jar ruined the film. I don't really think he ruined it all that much, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. And if you want to watch how I feel about the prequels, I have a great video of it on this channel, so you could go check that out if you want my full opinions on the film, as well as the other prequel films. So there was a game that came out the very same year. I picked it up much later in the year. It was probably my birthday or something like that. This might have been a birthday gift. I believe that it was. But this was a really interesting game. And they didn't do this for every Star Wars movie, which was a shame. You know, I would have really loved, you know, if they could have done this with The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens, or, you know, to do a game that's based on the movie and actually retells scenes from the movie and gets creative with it. They started doing that with the Super Star Wars series for the SNES. They did do it again with Revenge of the Sith, but that was more of a combat-oriented game. This is a mixture of styles. What I really like is they got extremely creative with Episode 1. They decided to go for not only combat, but platforming, puzzles, and also a little bit of role-playing. You know, this was an RPG, action-adventure, hybrid type of game, and a platformer, and I liked what they did with it. You know, it allowed for a lot of gameplay variety that kept the game fresh, And you could see a lot of influences in other Star Wars games from what they did with this one. Probably most specifically what I could think of is KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, when you look at the dialogue boxes, and you can see how you could kind of swing different situations in your favor or against your favor, depending on how you answer certain people. You could also use the Jedi mind trick, which is really fascinating. It's the first time that we got to see that as a dialogue option in a video game. I think it might have been the first time that we saw it ever. We would also see it in Jedi Outcast, that, you know, they used it more of as an attack of sorts. But here, you know, you get it as a dialogue option. And, you know, more or less, though, it's not really as influential on the main storyline as it is in KOTOR. But it was experimental, it was interesting, and it worked to add variety to the game. And I really appreciated that. So you take a look at this game, and things pretty much play out like the movie, more or less. You know, they took certain liberties here and there. But there are a lot of times when they go off on tangents, which is really one of the game's strong suits, which I really like. They expand on a lot of scenes in the movie. You get to walk around Mos Espa on Tatooine. You get to talk to different characters. And I don't know, there's just something so great and satisfying about asking everyone for the ship part, the T14 hyperdrive generator.
I'm looking for a T14 hyperdrive generator.
You get to talk to Watto, you get to talk to Shmi Skywalker and Anakin himself. You get to go on a whole trading quest, which is very Zelda-oriented. You get to trade different pod racer parts. And you get to interact with a lot of different characters that, you know, didn't even have any speaking parts in the movie, which I really dug. You know, you get to speak with Team Toe from the pod racing scene in the movie, Mal Hanik, you know, the Grand that's also in the pod race. So it's really cool how you get to talk and, you know, schmooze with all these different characters that had such minimal parts in the film. So they really expand on it, you know, and really, like, there's very detailed environments. Like, just look at Mos Espa, like, just how great it looks, detail with all these different characters on the screen, and everything runs pretty well. I don't know how it ran on the PlayStation, but on the PC, which, by the way, this game was a real pain in the neck to get running. I needed to use my DG Voodoo application to get this, and man, I had to, like, keep testing different things. And then I had that really annoying thing where you press the escape button, and instead of pausing the game, it canceled out of the entire game. It just, like, made it crash. So I could only quick save during this game. I couldn't just normally save a file. I had to quick save, so I could only really have one save file. So I didn't really have a lot of other options, you know, of saving during different levels. So, you know, at least I was able to save it all. At least there was that. And, just, man, just having to play a game like that is annoying, and I had, like, sound issues. Playing some of these older PC games, I can tell you, you know, how much I appreciate on consoles when they're backwards compatible, because it just makes it so much easier on the PC to get an old game to work that's not on Steam. This game is not on Steam at all, so it makes it really difficult to get your hands on this game. You have to buy it on the CD-ROM or get it through other means, but, you know, I like to do things the legal way, so you have to play this game on the CD-ROM if you want to do that. And getting it to work, you got to tinker around a bit. Yes, if you do download the DG Voodoo software, it definitely makes your life a lot easier. But it was a pain to get running, and I couldn't do anything about the sound skipping. I'm sure there's some type of fixes. But after Googling how to play this game on Windows 10, I was about to throw the damn disc out the window. So if you guys are at all curious what graphics card I was playing this with, it was an AMD Ryzen 2400G with Radeon Vega graphics. And let me tell you, I had to use the built-in graphics card because there were just so many compatibility issues at the wazoo. It was ridiculous. Playing these old games on a modern-day PC, if it's not on Steam, like it was with Shadows of the Empire when I did my retrospective on that game, it's a total nightmare. So be ready that you gotta do a little bit of maintenance before you can enjoy this great game. Now, with VG Voodoo, I managed to upscale this game to 1080p, and I know I recorded this in 720p for stability reasons for my PC. It just seems to work out so much better, and it's more fluid for you guys when you watch these retrospectives and reviews. But you're getting a pretty good idea of how the game looked. I don't really think there's a big drop off in quality, but man, this game looks really good. I know the character models look blocky by today's standards, but this game never looked better. I wish I could have got like a side-by-side comparison how it looked on my 99 Gateway with that outdated graphics card and Celeron processor. It wasn't even that powerful at the time, but it was like a decent computer. So it's actually, I'm looking at this kind of in retrospect, and I know this looks so much better than it did back in the day. So despite all the sound issues and the save file mishaps and not even being able to access the pause menu via the escape button, at least I got the greatest graphical experience that I ever got out of this game during this playthrough. And I gotta tell you, this is where the game really shines for me. When you're on Tatooine, I freaking just love playing as Qui-Gon. Because this is where the game takes on the RPG dynamic, and you really get to see all the different dialogue options and the trading. You definitely see where KOTOR, I don't care what anyone says, BioWare was inspired by this game. It's just almost impossible not to see with all the different dialogue options and the things that you could say. You could say things to piss people off. You could say things to please them. You could use your Jedi mind trick technique. And I really like how they deviate from the script of the film because, if all you were doing in this game was following the movie's plot, it would be a very short game indeed. But they added a lot of extra content that makes the game really exciting. And if you're playing this for the first time, like I was back in the day in '99, and even revisiting it for the things that I didn't quite remember, when the story deviates from the main plot line, it really shines. Like when you're playing as Qui-Gon, just before the race, an alien steals one of Anakin's pod racer parts. You have to go chasing after him, and it leads to a boss fight. You also get to go into the cantina at the Bonta Eve pod race and, talk to some of the patrons, which is really cool. Also, Jabba captures you right before the pod race begins because, there's a meeting that's set up between you and two Twi'lek sisters. And, they tell you to go into a hallway and you're ready for your big meetup with Jabba, and he's going to lend you some money so you can bet on the pod races with Watto. But you fall into a trap door, and wouldn't you know it, you got to fight against this beast. It's very reminiscent of Return of the Jedi and the Rancor pit. Definitely parallels were being drawn there and inspired during this scene. Also, Qui-Gon, also frees another slave, not just Anakin in this. There's also another slave that Qui-Gon has to save, and the mother asked you if you could save him. So, you go in and you save him, and you have to fight against another beast. And then in the later levels, you get to switch to the role of Captain Panaka. And I really like how they gave him his own mission. And it's an escort mission with Queen Amidala, and you have to guide her around as thugs are trying to kill her. They've got a hit out on her. And it's very reminiscent, actually, of Episode 2, before they even did the script. They blow up your air taxi just as you're about to board, almost like the assassination attempt that's made on her life at the beginning of Attack of the Clones. So that's really interesting, almost like a foretelling of things to come. And the part I really like is that you get to go into the Coruscant underworld. And by the way, Coruscant just looks beautiful in this game. I think they really captured the details. They nailed a lot of it. Like when you're on Naboo, I really love how that looks. When you're in the city of Theed, it just looks awesome, wonderful, and you listen to the music, like the birds chirping. It's just so great. The ambiance and everything terrific. But you get to go below in the underworld, and you've got people begging you for food, for money, and then when you say no to them, you know, these guys actually attack you. I mean, my God, it's almost, you know, that's kind of creepy to say the least. I remember the first time it happened, you know, I thought this was just some normal dialogue between me and just some bum down there, and then all of a sudden they start taking out their weapons and chasing after you. I mean, it really added some stress and some creepiness. Like you're down below in, you know, in the catacombs of Coruscant, and I really like the vibe that this gives off, and it really added a lot to Panaka's little storyline. And I remember I didn't expect to play as him when I first picked up this game. That was a big surprise to me. You got to appreciate the creativity that went into this game. You know, they could have just kind of, you know, tried to play it straight and try to follow the movie as close as possible, and they still do to a point. Another notable standout is I like with ObiWan, how you're in Otogunga, you go below, and it's really cool how you get to travel with all the bubble lifts, and they move you around the city, and it's awesome just looking at all the different weird alien fish swimming by. And you've got the Gungan guards, and they're coming after you, and I think it's really funny that Qui-Gon, you know, he tells you to go looking for Jar Jar Binks. You know, they're about to kill him. They're about to sentence him to death. And so you got to go into the bowels of Otogunga and find him. But Qui-Gon tells you don't harm any of the Gungans, but you slaughter like dozens upon dozens because the guards simply will not get out of your way no matter what you say. So you're going to have to strike them down. So I thought that was pretty awesome and a bit bizarre that they made that choice, because you think of the Gungans and they just, you know, they seem like nice guys in the movie, and you think of Boss Nass going and all that stuff, and here you are just slaughtering so many. And then there's children that are crying out, literally children crying out, a monster, help me. And it's like Obi-Wan is just slaughtering so many people. And you kind of think about like Obi-Wan, he's this, you know, mystical, legendary Jedi. And, you know, you meet him in A New Hope, and you're like, oh, you know, this guy, what a great guy. He wants to teach Luke Skywalker. And here you are in the game playing as him, and you're slaughtering these good and just people. You know, they're there to help you, and, you know, at the end of episode 1, there they are trying to help you fight the Trade Federation, and here you are slaughtering their guards by the dozens. Oh my goodness. And speaking of slaughtering, you can find these videos here on YouTube. I'm going to show you a little bit of my own here. I didn't really choose to go hog wild with it in this playthrough, but you could actually, when you're on Tatooine in Mos Espa, you can actually go around the town and slaughter everybody if you want. Now, the guards will try to stop you, but it's really funny how you could just take your lightsaber, Qui-Gon Jinn, you know, this Jedi, and, you know, a guy on a quest for good to try to save the galaxy, you know, in the film. And what is he doing? He's slaughtering a whole town of innocents. Oh my God, I just think it's hilarious. But it really shows the freedom of the game. You know, they didn't even let you do this in KOTOR. So, but I'm saying the open world possibilities here. I mean, I look at this, and this is just a fine example of great game programming. They let you do so many fun things that you just didn't see at the time, especially in a Star Wars game. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to play you guys any examples. I got to look for the clips after I record the audio for this and see if there's anything where there's no music playing in the background, so I don't get copyright struck. But the voices that they used as replacements for the characters, because sadly Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson were not available. But James Warwick and Scott Cleverton do an outstanding job performing the roles of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, respectively.
Isn't there a vast, deadly waterfall at the end of this river?
What sort of question is that? Why don't you jump in and find out?
You don't need my money. You're sorry you've bothered me.
So I really like that they got some good sound-alikes. You know, they really do sound like Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor. So I really appreciate that. I understand these are gigantic actors, even at this time. And, you know, they couldn't return for their roles for the video game. However, you do get some of the real voice actors. You get Jake Lloyd playing Anakin. You get Ahmed Best playing Jar Jar Binks. You get the original voice of Watto from the film. They really did cast some good replacement actors that play their role very well. And there's a lot of dialogue in this game. So it's very good that they did pick the people that they did to read these lines. And they read them extremely well. And it's so fun to hear them talk. Some of the lines of dialogue are hilarious, and they're fun, and you know, you want to go through all of them. It's kind of like in KOTOR. When you talk to a character, you really want to like go through all the different dialogue so you could hear it, so you could see the other character's reaction, and that's what makes it so much fun. And it adds to the replay value. It extends your playtime, but not in a cheap way, in a fun and an intuitive way that actually expands on the entertainment value and the whole entire gameplay experience. And I really appreciate that. You know, so many times do game developers just, you know, cheaply add time and try to, you know, just add padding to just make a game longer, when it would probably be better off being shorter and just better. But here, you know, I like all the choices that they made. It was a very satisfying gameplay experience, I must say. And there's a good variety of weaponry. You know, you've got, not only do you have your trusty lightsaber when you're playing as Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, but you also have a missile launcher, you have a blaster. Also, when you're playing as Panaka, you have access to some additional weapons, which is really cool. Padme's weapon really sucks. It's terrible. I mean, I don't understand why they couldn't have given her something better than that stupid taser weapon that they got. Like, come on. I mean, it is possible to pick up other weapons, but man, oh man, is this a lousy weapon. I mean, it doesn't even kill anything, for God's sakes. I mean, not instantly anyway. You know, you have to just fire it off 20 times, and then the battle droid will just kind of, you know, just spaz out and then eventually keel over. But, you know, they could have done a little bit better with the weapon choice for Padme, I would say. But if we have to get critical here, I would say it would have been nice to have some additional Force abilities. Now, we didn't have Jedi Outcast yet with all those different choices that you could use for the Force. But the only Force ability that you get is Force Push. And I mean, it is a good one, and it's effective against battle droids. But you really don't get anything. There's no saber throw. The only real trick you could do with your lightsabers is just spin around, basically. You could do this spin attack, but that's about it. None of the fancy stuff from Jedi Outcast and the other Star Wars games where lightsabers are featured are present here. So, you know, it's an earlier game, so it's understandable. Oh, and you could block enemy blaster bolts with your lightsaber, so there's another one. But you have to keep pressing the attack button. You have to do it manually, so unlike Jedi Outcast, it's not automatic and it's not as easy. So saber combat is really not that glorious as it would go on to be in future Star Wars games, but it is adequate. And it is fun defeating a bunch of battle droids and also using your Force Push to push down about 5 or 6 of them at a time. And things can get pretty hectic. I like that the game could, you know, handle a lot of different characters and enemies on the screen at one time. I counted at one time, I think, at least like 10 battle droids at once. So, you know, you never feel like the game is too easy and it's not giving you a good challenge. It is recommended that you save often, because the game, just like Jedi Outcast in a lot of ways, though not as many trolls, does like to throw some tricks and traps in the way. It certainly does. Choose the wrong dialogue option and you might meet with an untimely fate. So the game gets you really involved, really draws you into the Star Wars universe. And that's why I really like this game so much. It's very immersive, and it's got those qualities that makes KOTOR probably my favorite Star Wars game of all time. And you'll see a lot of that. So if you played KOTOR first and you're going into this game, you'll get the reverse effect. But remember, it was this game that came first, and that's what led to all these great inspirations. So we owe a lot to Episode 1, even if you don't like the game, even if you think that maybe the graphics look archaic in comparison, these outdated 3D graphics. But I have to say, the characters might look blocky by today's standards, but the environments held up very well in my eyes. And I like the way how they handled the final level in the game, the final battle. You switch between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Padme, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is trying to reach Qui-Gon Jinn as he's facing off against Darth Maul. You get separated, and you have to find your way back to him. This is one of the great offshoots in the game, and you have to do some tricky platforming and make your way up to the catwalk where the famous battle from the film was taking place. And then when you switch to Padme, you have to make your way through the Naboo Palace along with Captain Panaka, and you have to face off against hordes of battle droids and destroyer droids that are swarming you at all times. And it's really a cool battle. There's a lot of gunplay going on here, and it's actually pretty challenging. I particularly like this part where you man the gun turret and start firing at a bunch of battle droids that are coming at you near the steps. This is a really cool part, and I really like the camera angle. The perspective just really complements the battle nicely. So I like this. It's a really good way of capping things off, and then you fight off against Darth Maul in the end. Little did I realize, I just did this for this playthrough, you can just simply keep force pushing Maul until he falls in the center pit. So he's actually pathetically easy, really. I'm not sure if I just one-shotted him, and maybe if I tried again I wouldn't be so lucky, but I actually got this tip offline, and it worked like a charm. Well, that just about does it for this retrospective. I hope you guys join me for the next one, and guys, I hope you all consider subscribing. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons, and guys, thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.